in West Asia. Robert Dobbs is an expert on intelligence and counter-terrorism. Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary, founder of the Middle East Insights platform, and Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Thank you all very much for being with us. Robert Dobbs, there's the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, the YPG, the HTS, the SNA, many, many forces. The big question, who's in charge?
Well, I think that's the whole problematic issue here we have. That you look at for about 14 years, the rebel forces basically had no ability to, gain really any significant ground in Syria. And then within a month, all of a sudden we see this dramatic shift. And I think it begs to question some of the real motives of the current administration in the United States government and in creating more instability in the Middle East. We've seen in Libya, we've seen in Afghanistan, we've seen in Iraq that when you take out these power vacuums, the devil you knew was better than the devil you didn't. And I think overall that this becomes a very problematic issue for the Trump administration, especially, if there is some CIA involvement, which likely there is, that they keep playing this chessboard that they don't really win the game of chess.
Another question for you, Mr. Dobbs. Abu Muhammad al-Julani, of late, the leader, ostensibly the leader of the struggle which got rid of the regime, as it were, he's had a link to the Al-Qaeda in the past. He's tried to reconstruct his identity in the sense that he's sort of projecting himself as somewhat of a moderate. Is that something one can believe?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's like saying there's a moderate Taliban. We found out from that whole experience that there is no moderate Taliban. They call Daesh Al-Qaeda, right? They are what they are, basically monsters and animals in that region. And we're terrorizing the civilian population, especially, you could say the non-kind of extremist Sunni Muslims, mainly Christians, Kurds, others in the area, Alawites. And we're just causing complete chaos in the region. And now we look at that somehow, they're going to be reformed, which I highly doubt.
Yeah. Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary, in the power vacuum which presently exists in Israel, in Syria, there's also Israel and Turkey, both of whom have an important role. Turkey in the north, perhaps a force which helped in triggering what we've seen in Syria, and of course Israel as well, and we've seen important statements as fast as it did.
Well, I think once you've seen the motions going into effect, you knew what was going to happen. And I would really get back at why Bashar Assad went towards Iran in the first place. He was actually running covert black sites to interrogate terrorism suspects for the CIA. And the US government is the one that pushed Bashar Assad away. And you can even hear in speeches by Muammar Gaddafi to the Arab League that kind of got into all this, that it just seems that all the Arab leaders that tended to interact with the CIA in the end all end up dead or expelled from their governments. And I think that's one thing that we're failing to realize here, is that we're pushing these leaders into the arms of what we call the enemy, right? When in fact we could be working with them much more closely and have a greater impact as far as economics and even intelligence and military strategies as well. Just like with Russia, Russia is not our enemy. Russia is should be looked at as an opponent, right? A respectful opponent that you can sit down and work things out. But you have the neoconservatives and neoliberals in Washington, D.C. that want to keep this constant forever war going on.
Mr. Dobbs, speaking about Russia and their bases in Syria, which are absolutely critical for their strategic presence, what happens now? Do you believe that Russia would entirely be forced to entirely vacate their positions in Syria where they've been fighting for so many years?
Well, you've seen that already, that they have been removing troops and equipment and everything from Syria because they know the end game of this with these Islamist groups they're not going to ally with the Russians. That's almost the natural enemy of the Russians. And the Russians and, Vladimir Putin, he is not going to, if you want to say, lay down with the Islamists either, because of his own internal security for Russia and all that as well.
Dr. Chaudhary, are you able to identify any possible contours which a political formation in Syria may take?
Yes, sir. But first of all, I would like to say that just a couple of hours before, as we are talking about CIA, there was an unidentified CIA spacecraft over Erbil in Iraq. No one knows why it is there.